Hi guys. Look at me in school without you, missing you so terribly here on the workshop day. So let's see. Okay, today's lesson is our 1000th day of factoring. I'm gonna keep doing it till we get it right. Okay, by 1000th I meant third day. Feels like 1,000 though. And today is the 22nd. Okay. So today we're going to learn how to factor things, not just using the X method that we used last time, but something called an X box method. And that is used when you have a trinomial or a quadratic that looks like this, where you've got three things. But you see how the number in front of the y squared, there is one. Normally it would just be like the ones that we were using with the x problems, there was nothing in front of the y squared or the x squared or whatever variable was there. This time it's a number 4 though. And technically it wasn't nothing that was there, there was a 1, but it's just implied, like we don't have to write it down. So at first I'm just going to take you through the process of how this works, step by step, and then we're going to talk about why it works and then give you a little bit to practice. All right, so the first thing you do is you put this first term in that top left corner. So I'm going to put a little 1 there to show that that's the first thing you do. The second thing you do is in the bottom right corner, you put a number like that. The third thing you do is you multiply these two numbers together, get an answer, and then put that up here. So that would be, in this case, 24y squared. So again, the third step right here was multiplying. I'm going to write multiply these two together and get that. And then negative 11y, that middle number, goes down here. That's the fourth step. Okay, and now it's very much like the kind of system you're used to. We're going to try to figure out what two things multiply to get negative 24y squared but add to get negative 11. So that should be negative 3y and negative 8y, because if you multiply those together, you get positive 24y squared, but if you add them together, you get negative 11y. So this was step 5, was figuring out what those two are. Step 6 is putting these in the boxes. It doesn't matter which one goes where, as long as the things that are on either side of the x go in these two spots. But again, you could have put negative 3y down here, wouldn't matter. Okay, and now we're going to think about something in common between these two. So now we're kind of doing the opposite, just like that wing way where we're trying to figure out what's in common between these and pulling it out. So the thing in common between these two is 4y, and these two is 3, it looks like. Here I've got another y. Ooh, but I'm trying to get negative 3y, so maybe I should make that a negative 3. Down here I've got negative 3, but I'm trying to get to positive 6, so I still need another negative 2, which works for this one as well. So my answer to this one is 4y minus 3 times y minus 2. And if you had put that negative 3y and negative 8y in opposite spots, that would have just changed the order of this. So the 4y minus 3 would have been on the side here, and the y minus 2 would have been on the top, which again doesn't matter. Okay, by the way, this system always works. There is no guessing. A lot of people, a lot of other teachers teach it this way, where they basically have you write 2 parentheses, and then you try to think of 2 things that multiply to get to 4y squared. So you could have like 4x and 1x, or I guess you could have 2x and 2x. And then you'd have to think of things that multiply to get 6. So you could have like 6 and 1, or 1 and 6, or 2 and 3, or 3 and 2. You know, like really lots of different combinations to try. And then you would just basically try multiplying this stuff over and over against each other until you find the right combination, which happens to be this one. But this one tells you exactly what the right combination every time. There is no guessing whatsoever, besides you having to figure this part out right here. The only thing that's weird about this, because everything is kind of how you're used to, is this assumption right here, where do you remember for the third step where I said multiply these two together to get that one? But I didn't tell you why. And here is a quick explanation of why that always works. If I have, I don't know, a plus b and c plus d, okay? So A, C, and these are just general letters just to kind of prove a point here. So if I multiply these out, I get this. And if I multiply these two numbers together, I get A, B, C, D. And if I multiply these two numbers together, I also get A, B, C, D. So basically what we're doing here is if we multiply these two numbers together, we're saying that this relationship is intact, that those two things multiply together to get that, in this case, positive 24y in between. So it basically just holds that this has to be true so that we can figure out what these two have to be. Because we already know that this has to equal that, and that this helps us decide that right there. Anyway, you don't really have to know any of this part, you just have to know how to do it. So we're going to try example 2. I'm going to give you an example for you to try by yourself. 6p squared minus 7p minus 5. Okay, so you have to figure out what goes in these spots. It is definitely an X box problem, and you can tell that because there's 3 things, and that the thing in front of the p squared in this case is not a 1 or, just nothing being there. So go ahead and pause the video at this point and try this yourself. If you're not comfortable enough yet to try this by yourself, then follow along with me, but make sure you take notes. All right, so if I look back at this example up here, remember these little numbers tell you what goes where and which order in which to do them. So I'm going to start with that top left corner and put 6p squared right there. And then negative 5 goes in this bottom corner. And then I multiply them together to get negative 30p squared. And then I put this middle number on the bottom here, that's negative 7p. So I want two numbers that multiply to get 30, but add to get 7, or negative 7, negative 30. So I'm going to use 10 and 3, p of course, both of them have p's because they multiply to get p squared, but add to get p. And then I'm going to make this one negative, so that when they add together, they get negative 7p. So that'd be negative 10p and 3p. All right, so what's in common between these two? We've got 3p, and over here would be what, 2p. This one we're missing negative 5. Down here, that's what we already have, so I'll just put a 1 right there. So my final answer is 2p plus 1 times 3p minus 5. All right, last example we're doing. This one's a little bit tricky. 16y to the third plus 24y squared minus 16y. All right, I think you'll remember that the very first thing we ever did when we were factoring was we decided if you could take something out. You should, just looking at this, see that we've got a 16, a 24, and a 16. There's definitely something in common there between all of them. And all of them have at least one y. So we can pull some stuff out right away. So what we're going to do basically is we're going to do that action of taking something out of every single term, and then we're going to Xbox it. So what's in common between all of 3 of these? Well, let's see, a 2, but more than that, a 4, okay, more than that, an 8 for sure, an 8, and there's at least one y in all of them, so I'll put an 8y down. Then I'm left with 2y squared plus 3y minus 2. All right, and then we're ignoring this thing out front, which is that y squared, and we're basically just gonna Xbox this part, and then we'll put that 8y back in our answer when we're done. So I put 2y squared here, negative 2, multiplied them, got negative 4y squared. Middle number goes on the bottom. And then we're looking for two things that multiply to get negative 4, but add to get 3. So it's definitely a 4y and a 1y, or just a y, I guess we could say. And then one of them has to be negative, so I guess it might as well be that y, because then we get 4 minus 1, which is 3. All right, so then I'll put the 4y here and the negative y there. It doesn't matter where they go. Things in common here is just a y, which means we need a 2y over here. Still need a 2 right there and a negative 1 there. If you are struggling with figuring out how to pull